This is a relay project.
Real Talk starts right now. Here's Ryan Jesperson.
On this Friday, December 9th, we welcome you to a very special edition of Real Talk, not just because it's a Friday, not just because that means that we present our Real Talk Roundtable, presented by our friends at Urban Timber, but this is the first ever in-person Real Talk Roundtable, not just talking Studio 2.0, not just talking about our beautiful new location in Edmonton's historic Mercer Warehouse. We're talking ever as we reconvene the wildly popular group chat roundtable featuring Harman Kandola, Jenny.tells, and Jarrett Campbell. It's wonderful to have the three of you here in our studio. This is what we envisioned when we put this thing together, so it's great to have you sitting around this table.
Is it actually wildly popular?
It is wildly popular.
Wow.
Yeah, people, for whatever reason, I'm not exactly sure why, but whatever it is, you three seem to have the secret sauce. And people always enjoy. Our downloads bump up a little bit when the group chat roundtable's in the house. Jarrett, with Aspen Advisory, also that's your day job, Jarrett.
What's your night job?
Your night job.
Well,
your moonlighting job.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I think he sort of has this look in his face like he can't wait to hear how I understand what his job is. But you help people put together big deals that are constructing towers, right? In your day job, in a way. You work in the world of finance and development, and then you also work on a bunch of campaigns. You're very politically engaged, and you've got a lot of understanding on what happens behind the scenes. You're kind of like one of the House of Cards guys.
He helped get a lot of the last council elected.
Hey, I had a pretty good time. There's no money in
But not
politics,
Harman.
so you have to do something in the day to make money because you can't make money in politics.
I love it. Jenny.tells is principal at the Adams Agency, and so you help businesses, organizations, and high-profile individuals understand how to best get their message out.
I like it.
How to have it resonate.
Yep.
I once included in your introduction that you help you coordinate and plan events, and you gave me
And
this
I
like dagger
basically
look. You're like that
threw
is.
my Bailey coffee across the table.
You're like, that's not what I do at all. But
We don't plan events.
You're in the world of
We do.
helping people get their message to resonate or get the proper message out. And you're also a member of in Edmonton. This will be for our local audience that shares this home city with us. You're a member of the DRC.
The downtown. I think my mic's out.
Yeah, no, you're good.
Okay. The
Yeah.
Downtown Recovery Coalition.
Okay.
Yeah. So a group of 25 individuals who are just from all different industries, nonprofits, kind of all walks of life, donating their time to really bring downtown's key areas, whether it be safety, security, or being investment ready, to light over and over and over and over again. Very similar to how you'd see those bike lane folks who are always bringing the bike lane issues up to heart. It's just an advocacy group to say, hey, here's downtown, here's the things we need, here's why we need it. And even if you don't live, work, and play downtown, this is why you should care.
Okay, 10-4. I wonder if that might come up in conversation today. We'll see. We don't have anything scripted. It's not how we roll with the group chat roundtable. Harman Kandola joining us. He's a lawyer with SB LLP. I'm a lawyer. He's a lawyer and also a longtime, politically savvy. You've been politically engaged. You've been a volunteer. You were out in Hamilton a short time ago, right? No, not Hamilton. Brampton, pardon me. Helping a good pal of yours with his campaign. You recently ran in a municipal campaign here in Edmonton. You've been a provincial candidate with the Progressive Conservatives. It's nice to see your face. You're literally just back from the World Cup.
Yes. I flew in, about a day ago. 22-hour flight. Left plus 36 to land in desolate cold and
City, you meant to say?
Well, and I was wearing shorts and a t-shirt on the plane.
Why talk about the weather, Harman?
And on the flight to Edmonton, the gentleman beside me is like, "Do you know where you're going? Like, where are you coming from, and where do you know where you're going?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm going home." And he's like, "I think you need to look at the weather." And everybody's wearing their parkas, and I'm there in shorts. And
You're part of the problem.
Yeah.
We leave here and we talk about the weather. We've got to stop.
I wasn't trying to talk about the weather. I was trying to live a mindset.
Okay.
Harman's a little bit nervous because while most people will hear this on the podcast, those that are watching on YouTube will see that Harman is currently in the interrogation cam. We have the interrogation cam. You in front of the black curtain, and it's making you a little bit nervous, maybe. No, what was the actual experience like at World Cup? There's a lot of things to process and talk about. I mean, number one, people saying that Qatar should have never had the World Cup. Some interesting dynamics, like a teetotaling stadium. Nobody's drinking any beer, which for sports fans, that seems to be a big deal for some people. And then on the pitch, A lot of interesting storylines, some upsets. What did you take away from it?
And one of the things, a lot of misconceptions about Qatar and a lot of, issues that you saw. And especially one of the things that became really blatantly obvious to me with some of the misconceptions or some of the stories in the media. One in particular that bothered me was, a lot of people talking about these fake fans before the tournament. So you had a lot of these South Indians who were captured in social media posts celebrating when, like, Team England came and then when Argentina came, and there would be these group of South Indians who were in their jerseys and they'd show up to greet these teams, and everybody's like, oh, look, Qatar's paying these fake fans to show up. These are all fake fans. No, you go there and there's South Indians everywhere. They love football, they love soccer, they love Messi. Like, they, in the Argentina game that I went to in Poland, they made up a huge contingent of the crowd. They've got their own chants, their own culture around this. And when you look deeper into it, especially in South India, like, they put up massive cutouts of the players. Like, they've got politicians who are beefing on Twitter about, is it Messi, is it Ronaldo, is it Neymar? Like, their government is running programs around the World Cup to get education out. So it was interesting to see how a lot of people in the West were saying, well, it's clear that these are just paid fans. And then you understand, it's like, no, people are passionate about football around the world. And
but you can understand why there's a perception that maybe Qatar would just pay instead of doing things properly. Maybe that's how they got the World Cup in the first place. Maybe
look,
they just
maybe.
had money.
What?
Maybe.
I mean, I don't know if that was ever proven.
Same allegations, 2002 Winter Olympics in Utah. It came out
The
that-
Mormons paid?
Yes.
Oh,
Everybody is paid. I mean, we all understand that FIFA is quite the corrupt organization.
Yep. Same with the
so
Olympic
Edmonton
Games.
didn't pay.
Edmonton did not pay.
Edmonton did not pay.
I have heard that there was a suggestion that shopping was very important to the FIFA delegates, and maybe the wives of the FIFA delegates should have gone to West Edmonton Mall. And it's Edmonton. It was controversial. We even gave them a Canada Goose jacket when they were here.
Really?
So,
Is that what was that like? The whole thing, like, take the first of all, that sounds like straight out of 1950s. But we're going to take the wives of the delegates. There's no female delegates. I don't know if I should be laughing, but like, we're going to take the wife because you know what women love? Women love shopping. Am I right, boys? Am I right? But so we're going to take the wives shopping to WEM. Is that code for we're going to take them to like we're going to give them
We're going to make sure they have a good
suitcases
time.
full of cash at the mall to wink wink nudge nudge go shopping.
Yeah, I don't know if you need to get suitcases of cash, but like maybe buy a couple purses or whatever they want. I don't
Sure.
know. I mean, again, it's FIFA, right? It's just they do things a certain way, and hey, we didn't pay them off.
Well,
They didn't.
Allegedly.
We didn't get the World Cup games here in Edmonton.
Right. And so obviously whatever we did, kind of fell short. And being in Qatar, it was nice in the fact that, this was all in one place versus, a typical World Cup. You're in different cities. Here, it was a concentration of all the fans in one place. I mean, the atmosphere was amazing. Every single game, you had hardcore fans at most of these games. You didn't really have casual fans. So the atmosphere was phenomenal. I had the pleasure to be able to go to a couple of Canada games.
Yeah.
Got to go watch Canada versus Croatia and, watch that first ever World Cup goal, Alphonso Davies doing Edmonton proud, first minute. I mean, that was a moment. Some of my friends who are diehard Canadian fans, had tears in their eyes. Like that moment meant so much for Canadian soccer. And, this was this Canadian soccer men's national team was a team that represented, Canada today. And I think that's what it resonated with a lot. And you saw that in the fans who had traveled. There was, 15, 20,000 Canadians in this stadium. Like the atmosphere was electric amongst the Canadians. I definitely think we outnumbered the Croatians. The Moroccans are something different. Like Moroccan fans were wild. Like the ringing in my head from their whistling, like a week later, is still there. Like this is how loud these people were. But the Canadian fans, we did well, and you heard it from other countries. They would see our Canada flags and they'd come over to us and be like, you guys were hard done. You guys played well. And everybody wanted to know more about the Canadian team. They wanted to know more about Alphonso Davies. And there was this genuine interest of, you've arrived as a soccer nation, and that was kind of a special moment, especially for a lot of us who grew up playing soccer and totally being discounted.
Sure,
and so it was nice to have the boys play really well. I mean, as much as the Croatia result was disappointing, I thought they showed a brand of football and a style of football that was attractive and impressed a lot of people.
I don't think that, Canada didn't necessarily, I mean, it was unfortunate, the whole, like, we're going to beat the F out of the whatever, and then Canada got pumped a little bit in that sense, but really, we didn't get, like, embarrassed. which I think at international sporting events, I'm trying to think of what would be an example. Maybe like the Latvian men's hockey team or something like that, where it's a huge win to be at the tournament in the first tier, right? Not sort of in that consolation round. I think of, I don't know, what's another example? Japanese women's hockey would be another example of like where you can see major progress being made by those nations. And then you think of, I mean, here you are a grown ass man, and that's amazing. But what about a 6-year-old or an 8-year-old?
Well, my children.
Exactly.
Right. And so, I look at it and it was amazing for my son, he's 7 years old and he's kind of coming into his own wanting to play soccer, and he gets to see that representation. And, especially like Alphonso Davies, like this guy's an international, like he is Canada's, best athlete in my opinion right now, men's athlete. He's put.
You think he's better than Connor McDavid?
Absolutely. And I think,
boy, baby, here we go.
Who is Connor McDavid compared to Alphonso Davies?
What?
Is that a serious question?
Absolutely.
Alphonso Davies is not the best footballer in the world, right? Connor McDavid is the best hockey player in the world,
How many
period.
people play hockey? How many countries play hockey? Being where Alphonso Davies is a way bigger accomplishment and achievement than what Connor's done.
I already know what our highlight clip is going to be from this roundtable, and it's you losing
In the
friends
interrogation
in
chair.
in the interrogation shot.
This is why the downloads go up. It's like hate mail. That's what he didn't say. Is like he's like, yeah, people really
Harman's
want to
so conservative and he hates hockey.
You know what? I love debates like that. There's no question. I mean, I love the beautiful game. I grew up playing it, but I can't start dropping names. I can't tell you like who the backup keeper is for Croatia or anything like that. But I asked a friend who's passionate about soccer, about football. I said, give me a sense, like, because he knows. I said, give me a sense, like, of where Alphonso Davies stacks up. He said, well, he's not the best back Canada's ever had. He said he's the best in the world at his position, and he's from Canada, which is pretty unbelievable. That's rarefied air for Canada in that sport, men or women. I mean, let's keep in mind also one of the big controversies. James Duthie found his name trending for all the wrong reasons when he described Alphonso Davies' goal at the World Cup as Canada's greatest football moment of all time. And you've got a gold medal winner, an Olympic gold medal winner from the women's team sitting right beside him, just staring at him with this icy glare. I mean, the Canadian women have been elite for a number of years now, but now to see the men getting to a point where they're catching up. They're not going to win Olympic gold anytime soon, I don't think, but it's a hugely encouraging development, especially for young players, like you're saying.
Well, and this is a program that has been, kind of mocked for a long time. And after '86, there was a lot of people who had, heard from players who played on that '86 team, and we grew up thinking that the World Cup was never a possibility. 2026, most likely we get an automatic berth. Well, having been able to earn it on our own merit in this World Cup, demonstrated to the world. And again, I think it was interesting. So we got to watch the England-Wales game. And afterwards, there was comments by the Welsh, fans, which was the world got to see who we were. They got to hear our language. They got to see our flag. They got to understand that we were, who we were. And it was interesting because it was inspiring for us going into the last match with Morocco that this was a chance for the world to see Canada. And what does Canada look like? And that was, I think an important part of this, which is separate from the sporting perspective, right? Having in that story of Alphonso Davies, like you go through Qatar, like Alphonso Davies was on one of the skyscrapers. Like there was an image of Alphonso out
Is that
there.
right?
Absolutely. And his story is well known. I got interviewed before the Korea-Ghana game by Ghanaian TV. And they pulled me aside and they saw my Canada flag and they're like, how do you guys feel about Alphonso Davies? And I'm like, we're very proud. He came over as a refugee from Ghana. And then this guy corrects me. He's like, no, he was a refugee from this country. He came to Ghana and he started giving me the history. And so they're out there coming to us to talk to us about Alphonso Davies. I mean, this is how you know that he has transcended beyond just the borders of this country and Europe where he plays. Like this, he's a hero to players, to fans across the world. And that's why I say that, he's a bigger name, I think, than Connor McDavid when it comes to sports.
And it's a great story for Canada. Look at the Canadian team, look at, a lot of sort of first generation people that came, he came here as a refugee, right? And we gave, Canada was able to give him an opportunity. He took advantage of it. And it's like, that tells a great story to the world. Because that's probably the
and he embraces
best
his story.
Single
He
thing about Canada.
embraces his identity. He tells his story. He's proud of who he is and where he came from. I don't know anything about Connor McDavid's background. I don't know anything about any of the struggles he had to go through. As far as I'm concerned, he's just another privileged individual playing hockey. So to me, I see Alphonso Davies and I relate to Alphonso Davies in a way that I can't to Connor McDavid. And I think for a lot of people in this country, when they see Alphonso, that's what they see.
It's a great story.
Does the World Cup make, would you consider yourself, Jenny, to be a fan of soccer, a casual fan of soccer?
You can tell by how much I've said that no, not especially.
Does something like the World Cup pique your interest at all? Have you
just
watched
for the
5 minutes of matches?
There's not a lot of things in the world where the entire world is excited about something, right? Somebody in every country who's paying attention. I worked in Hong Kong post school, and I was there during the World Cup. And I worked at this clothing store as part of my internship, and we had to dress up as our favorite team and paint our faces and all sorts of things. And it was very exciting to be in another country who cared a lot. But yeah, so I've never watched a soccer game. Actually, that's not true. In Chile, I went to a Colo-Colo match and almost died.
Wow.
Yeah, almost died. Had no idea which team was which and started doing the whistling for the wrong team. And so anyway, it's very exciting.
Yeah, no kidding. That's Jenny Adams, Jarrett Campbell, Harman Kandola joining us this edition of the Real Talk Roundtable live in the Real Talk studio. It's our popular group chat roundtable, and this wouldn't happen without sponsors like the Roundtable presenting sponsor. That's our friends at Urban Timber. This table we're sitting around, they're the ones that designed it. They're the ones that built it, delivered it, set it up, made sure we are thrilled with it, and boy, are we ever. But they're about more than just tables. You can go online right now and check out their block collection, urbantimber.ca. They're crafted from giant reclaimed timbers, mainly found in old grain elevators across the prairies. These are fir timbers. You can't go find big chunks of fir anymore. You just can't. But 100 years ago, these things were harvested from old growth trees. And you sit there and you try to just count the rings and figure out how old your new coffee table or end table is. They mill each timber, then sand and finish it with a silky smooth coating. Absolutely stunning. You can check out their new showroom. It's open this Saturday from 10 to 4, a beautiful location in Edmonton's West End. You can find all the details online at urbantimber.ca. Now, we tell you who built this studio for us. It's the team at Complete Care Restoration. Now, here's the deal. They're in one of those funny business type scenarios where they say, we hope you never have to hire us. They don't want to see your house burned down. They don't want to see some sort of electrical issue or smoke damage. They sure hope your basement doesn't flood. But if you encounter a disaster and you need restoration services, you know that with your insurance company, you are entitled to have the company you want, to have the company of your choice doing that work. I cannot more strongly suggest that you hire Complete Care Restoration. Their team is unbelievable. Their attention to detail, unparalleled. You can find them online at completecarerestoration.ca. Hey, the holiday sales continue at McBain Camera. I want you to check out McBainCamera.com right now. If you're looking for the perfect gift for the creator in your life, you can save for up to $450 right now on Canon gear during McBain's holiday sale. Create vibrant, professional quality prints from the comfort of your own home with the Canon Pixma Pro 200 inkjet photo printer. We don't print enough photos anymore. Everybody keeps them digital, and then you lose your phone or your hard drive crashes, and 10 years of memories are gone, at least the photos of them. This is designed to meet the needs of photographers, graphic artists. The Pixma Pro 200 delivers outstanding results that your artwork deserves, and here's the best part. It's a compact footprint. It can print custom sizes up to 13 by 39 inches, and it's just $649.99 right now at McBain. Plus, it includes a free paper sample pack. This, you don't give kids toys on Christmas without batteries. You don't give someone a photo printer without paper. And remember, all purchases at McBain are backed by that 30-day price protection. You can shop them online at McBainCamera.com. If you're the type to be making a New Year's resolution, maybe New Year, New You is something that you're going to wear as a badge of honor, why not start that journey today at athabascau.ca? Athabasca University is Canada's open university with world-class accredited online programs and courses. Here's the best part. Here's why tens of thousands of Canadians go to Athabasca U to accelerate their next career move, maybe just their personal understanding of issues that matter. It's because it's a schedule that suits your lifestyle, flexibility to learn at your own pace. For ambitious people everywhere looking for flexible approaches to higher education, check out Canada's Open University, Athabasca University, today. And if the new year also means that you're going to find ways to cut your costs on what you're paying for utilities, electricity has been off the charts this year. Not in a good way. Why not get a free quote for solar today at QBenergy.ca? The price of solar has been dropping. You know, the average installation's like 12 to 18 grand, from the bungalows all the way up to the big fancy shacks. The price is down. The panels are lasting 30 years now. You're paying them off in the first 10, and even better, you can pay them off interest-free with that Canada Greener Homes Grant. $40,000 interest-free, paid over 10 years. You're going, but what about the paperwork? Kubi handles that for you as well. It's a federal grant you won't want to miss out on. Kubi is providing solar energy solutions to power your life, and of course, presenting positive reflections every Monday right here on Real Talk. Well, this is an interesting situation, isn't it? Down at the Alberta legislature, every premier, when they retire, and Rachel Notley pushed back on this yesterday. She says, I'm not retiring, I'm not leaving, I'm running again. But when a premier retires or ends their term in office, a portrait goes up at the Alberta legislature. The Notley portrait was unveiled yesterday, and typically the sitting premier will preside over the, funny how they call it, the hanging, but that's what they do. This time, that's not the case. Alberta's Premier Danielle Smith said that she had meetings and was unavailable to attend. Jenny, does it maybe have anything to do with the fact that those two are going to go head-to-head, we expect, in May, the provincial election coming up?
It obviously does. Like, if I'm on her team, if I'm her press secretary, there's no way I'm allowing that photo op to happen, because that's going to run in every newspaper, online. It's going to be memes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's no way.
So you think it's a smart move on Danielle Smith's part?
It's a no-brainer. Whether it's Danielle Smith, two people in opposing parties, I just can't see anyone doing it. I can't see Rachel Notley doing it if it was for Jason Kenney in the next go-around, if an election was being teed right up.
Huh. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm kind of with Jenny. I think they probably made the political call. It is, probably a sign of where, politics has gone, and some of the decorum has long since gone away, and, everyone's given up on that. I saw that and I thought to myself, maybe, but, there's what's that quote? Never attribute to malice what you could better describe with incompetence. And it's kind of like, this is the Premier's office that just introduced the Sovereignty Act and had to revise it 2 days later. It's not like this is like a tightly run ship, right? And it's like, maybe they're sitting there like 2 days before and they're like, oh man, we got conflicting meetings because we don't know what we're doing. I don't know. I mean, does this look like a tightly run ship to you guys from the outside?
This is a very simple call. Like, come on, JC, you've been on a million campaigns. This is a very simple call. For example, when you advised one of the leadership candidates in the last election to wear a suit that was 3 sizes too big, very simple call.
Sometimes
maybe ruined the election over.
Yeah, that was the one thing. If that suit was tight,
if the suit would have fit properly, and I'm sorry, we won't explain what we're talking about, but if you know, you know. It's a very simple call not to have two opposing party leaders standing in a photo op, one that's saying, hey, I'm going to honor you as being a premier right before an election.
Like there's a voter looking, I was going to vote for one, and now, they look like they're
but
friends.
It's the media that will take this story and do something with it. Come on,
do what with it?
Everything with it.
Everything?
Yes.
What do you think? Does it?
I mean, I think not going is the story. And if that was what, Danielle Smith was looking for, I don't understand the strategy of positioning herself as going to be an adversary of the fact that Rachel Notley was actually a premier. Like, are we going to try to deny this factual existence? To me, this is an opportunity for Danielle Smith to kind of continue to show a pivot potentially, and that she's willing to be an adult, and I think it was a missed opportunity.
Think about her base. People ask me all the time, it doesn't matter if it's Rachel Notley or Jason Kenney or Danielle Smith. I'm sure they ask you too, because we've been volunteers for politics forever, and some of us have run a million times and not won.
Jenny's she's like looking for a fight this morning.
Jarrett Campbell is the common denominator.
I know, he's the reason you didn't win. But anyway, people always ask, why would she say that? Why would he say that? It's ridiculous. And I'm like, yes, because they believe it. Like, and once you understand that the things that are being said and coming out of some of our past premiers' mouths, they actually believe, then it makes you think about why they're arguing things, because it seems so ridiculous, the sovereignty ask. It seems so ridiculous and you can't understand it. But it's because, the past few premiers really believe the things that they're talking about. And not every single one has. And, it reminds me of, and I hope you don't mind, RJ, in our group chat,
yeah.
I always used to say the only person that could go toe to toe with Jason Kenney in a conversation, because Jason Kenney is so good at speaking, would be Ryan Jesperson. And how many times have we asked Jespo to run for many different
all the time.
We've taken you for wine, we've taken you for dinners, like it's our decision, and like us sitting around in a room and trying to convince you it's a great idea.
What he doesn't know is we set up a separate chat last night, and we're like, hey, so we're gonna be on the air. We got a whole plan. We're gonna ask him.
The centrists of the province are saying Jespo, but the one person I didn't think of besides you would be Danielle Smith, that she can go toe to toe.
Yeah. Okay, but so hang on a second. So okay. First of all, what we've established here is that I can be wined and dined, but not bought.
I don't know if that's true, but not by us. Apparently, we didn't buy you purses at the mall.
We just didn't have enough money. We just kept upping it up and up and up, and it wasn't enough.
We didn't have
so
any
we don't know.
money.
Maybe we didn't have any money.
We
had no money.
That's right.
Could you even bought?
We
don't
split
know.
the wine bill.
Yeah, I saw a release from of course we're on all the mailing lists, and this out from the Notley NDP team yesterday, and I thought that this was pretty funny, actually. Everyone will remember it was not actually called the job-killing carbon tax. However, the label that Jason Kenney and that Aaron O'Toole and that Pierre Poilievre and that all at Candace Bergen and all of the prominent conservatives, Scott Moe across the country, Doug Ford, started referring to it as the job-killing carbon tax. And it was either Rachel Notley's job-killing carbon tax or Justin Trudeau's job-killing carbon tax. Well, yesterday, a release from the Alberta NDP, Notley calls on Smith to immediately refer the Job-Killing Sovereignty Act to the Alberta Court of Appeal. And I thought, well, would you look at that? Wordsmith-wise, that's going to resonate with people. It's a little bit cheeky, but here's the fact of the matter. This is what people want to determine anyway, could this Sovereignty Act actually kill jobs? We've been endeavoring to have conversations on this show. We try to take the big issues and help understand what does this mean for the average Albertan. What does this mean for the average Canadian?
Two things I want to say. One, if I was on Notley's team, I wouldn't have correlated the job killing anything, because now we're talking about the job killing carbon tax. We're bringing it up and we're bringing it up again. Why mention that? Because now we're having that conversation about what Notley did when she was a premier. Second of all, I think what Jason Kenney tried to do and was trying to do is create some confidence for investors in Alberta by keeping things the same. The Sovereignty Act is like, what is going to happen here? Are you going to change your mind? You're not going to listen to the rules. We're not going to understand this. Anything can happen in crazy Alberta because of the Sovereignty Act. So from an investment standpoint, are you choosing to come here? Are you choosing to invest your dollars? And then obviously with the trickle-down effect when it comes to jobs for the everyday average Albertan. So I think we need that confidence and that consistency in this province, which is what I think the last premier was trying to do. And this does not help.
Yeah, the Sovereignty Act doesn't help. I actually like that they've called it the job-killing Sovereignty Act, right? I don't think that people are going to go, it reminds everybody what we're really talking about, right? What are the table stakes here? This election is decided by, a dozen seats in Calgary, right? And I've always thought, Calgary is a very business-focused, business-minded city. And, you're really going to, what's the ballot box question? And is what's bad for business, right? Is this bad for business? And is this going to kill jobs? And I think that's a good narrative for them to keep pressing on, whether or not it's true or not. I mean, historically, if you go back in the history of Canada, Montreal was the sort of the financial banking center of Canada. It was really the center of Canadian economy. In the 70s, they started going down this path of increasing sovereignty, and it changed, right? All the big banks moved from Montreal. They moved their head offices to Toronto. It killed investment. This is what I don't understand. Like, when you look across Canada, why would you ever look at Quebec and think we should be more like them? They got low, like some of the lowest incomes in Canada. They're on the federal take. They've got no dynamism in their economy. Immigrants don't want to move there. They don't want immigrants. It's like this is the place in Canada that you should be the least like.
I don't think she doesn't want to be like Quebec.
They
want the same privileges that Quebec has to determine what they want to do.
They look at Quebec and they see there's a sense of envy. They mention it. It's like
I think it's
Quebec gets all this, Quebec gets all that. It's like, yeah, well, if your economy was a basket case too, you'd get bailed up by the federal government. We don't want to have an economy that's a basket case. We want a strong economy. Sovereignty Act doesn't help. Anything that makes us more like Quebec doesn't help.
Well, business wants, and Jenny, you touched on this. They want predictability. They want stability. They want to understand, how a government regime is going to affect their interest. And if the government itself doesn't know what's in this act, and it itself doesn't understand the mechanisms that they're putting in place, how does that assure or give any confidence to business? To me, having to go back 2 days later and adjust, and after like being caught kind of almost like a deer in the headlights, was a clear indication that this act, the Sovereignty Act itself, was premature. They don't understand the impact that it's going to have on business. The quote that they used in their meme was totally out of context. I thought that was a very
Which one, Harman?
So I think the UCP put out it was one of the and maybe Jarrett will remember this example, and I'll pull it up. But the context of the meme that they put up was we don't think this will have an effect because we don't know yet was the rest of the sentence, right? And the effects are to be seen. And that was part of the context that they didn't include of the quote. And it's like, how are they trying to reassure business when literally they don't know what's in this act themselves?
The Sovereignty Act thing is, I think that Supriya and I debated this on the most recent episode of Seriously. People can check it out at seriouslypod.com. And I asked the question of her, the same question that I asked Charles Adler a couple of days before. And that was, does Danielle Smith deserve credit for acknowledging that she didn't use these words, but to walk something back, in her words, to send Bill 1 back to the drawing board? I asked Adler if he thinks that shows positive leadership qualities or negative leadership qualities. He assessed it as a negative. Supriya, though qualified, and people can check out the clip, you can download the podcast wherever you find it. See just these subtle little plugs all throughout. But she did offer the caveat. But her takeaway, the point she made in one sentence, was that she thought Danielle Smith deserved credit. When a politician rolls something out that's insufficient or doesn't fit the bill, then they should deserve credit for going back to the drawing board. It wasn't back to the drawing board for long. The government pushed it through like any majority government can. But do you think she deserved credit, or do you think it was an egg on the face type moment where people are saying this doesn't even make sense?
I think any leader deserves credit when they realize they've made a decision and that's not the right thing, and to go back. And that's absolutely something we talk about when I work in crisis comms. It's like, hey, you messed up. You can either go straight forward, or you can stop and apologize and correct course, and you win back trust that way. Our last premier with Kenny, remember, would never apologize for anything and walk back anything. That was their mantra. Just go, 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 go. Yeah. So it is certainly different. I hate in our group chat that I always seem like I'm the one defending the Conservatives. I'm not trying to defend Conservatives here. I'm trying to defend, and this Sovereignty Act, I'm always just trying to show the other side of what they may be thinking. And I think she said that, I heard her speak twice now at the Chamber luncheon and another time, that she's willing to recognize when she's made mistakes, or which she's had to because she's had so many already. But they're willing to listen and kind of respond and improve the things that they're working on. But at the end of the day, they still believe the things that they're doing, and like you said, push through.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I've got a different take on this one, right? I appreciate that. Yeah, people make mistakes and they walk it back, and there's certain examples where and Kenny, didn't like to apologize and walk things back. But in this particular case, it's like, if I lit your Christmas tree on fire here and then ran and got a fire extinguisher, you wouldn't be like, thank you for putting that out. You'd be like, you created a real problem here. Like when they released the Sovereignty Act.
Please don't light our Christmas tree on fire.
Don't worry, I'll put it out. I don't know where the fire extinguisher is.
I'm just realizing I don't either. So.
And in this particular case, they released this wildly unconstitutional thing, and people are, really respected, thinkers like Howard Anglin are going like, what are we even doing here?
JC, you're in
this
politics.
Wasn't just like, oh, whoops, I made a little mistake. It's like, whoa, whoops, I introduced.
Let's talk about their base. The base of who Danielle is appealing to is, remember, further right than Jason Kenney. And the things she's been talking about are extremely, far right ideas. And I'm sure there are lots of people that support Danielle that think this is a good idea. That they want control from the feds, that they want to protect oil and gas, that they want to protect all the things and have the ability to stand up. Like, I know, I always say this, my family lives in Leslieville, Alberta, right? So I hear the other side of the equation. I hear the rural Alberta argument, and I'm still like, okay. But there are other people in the province who think differently than we do. And so I'm only trying to guess where she's coming from, because I believe she believes the things she's doing, and that there would be some people who agree with the Sovereignty Act.
Well, but, do you think that's a path to victory?
I think they probably think it's a path to victory. I'm not saying that I agree, but I'm saying whether you're far right or far left and you're speaking to, we say this all the time, people who like money a little bit and people who like people a little bit, I'm really high level generalizing, don't come out in droves to vote. We're not bringing a bus of 200 people to come out and vote for something, to vote for a leader, or 2,000, like someone who's far right, whether it's a pro-life idea, or someone who's far left, whether it's an environmental issue, who are really fired up. So that's who politicians are. Come on, guys, this is obvious. That's who politicians are appealing to these days. It's not us in the middle. So absolutely, I would think that if you're a leader and you're talking about something, you would think that there's an audience who agrees with you.
But here's the thing, like, and again, I'm stating the obvious as well, but you can win, like, I'm putting you all on the spot because I don't know the answer. I'm trying to remember how many votes Danielle got in the UCP leadership. It was like 50,000 or something like that. I wish I could remember. Let's call it 50,000. I might be way off, and that's on me if I am. But like, to win, like Jason Kenney in winning the 2019 election had like almost 1.1 million votes, right? The Notley NDP had, like, if I remember off the top of my head, like 670,000, something like that, like almost 700,000-ish. The Alberta Party had like 170,000 votes and wound up with diddly squat. So you can get out the hardcore grassroots. You're talking about and again, I'm not using this as a disparaging term, but like the right wingers. I got wonderful friends that are right wingers. That's not necessarily a bad. Well, let me just walk away from that one. But my point is, you can get 50,000 hardcore right wingers that would personally tell off the prime minister to his face and that drive around with the "fuck Trudeau" bumper stickers, and you can get 50,000 of them.
But then you have to win the general.
You can't get 1.1 million of them.
But you see it with the CPC,
and
right?
And where do they live, right? Like, winning another vote in Leslieville, Alberta, wins you no more seats.
Agreed.
Right? Like,
Agreed.
There are a dozen seats in Calgary, maybe a couple. You could probably call Spruce Grove and Fort Saskatchewan. You know, and this is one of the hardest things in all of politics. You all believe in something. Everybody's got their base. The people that are in politics believe something. What matters. And there's going to be some people that are going to vote for you no matter what. There's going to be people that won't vote for you no matter what. And then there's this small group of people that are swing voters. They may not vote. They may show up. They may vote for a different party. That is who you try to appeal to.
What percentage of the general population would you say is the swing vote? Like 10%?
Yeah, like if that, right?
If
there's not, and it doesn't even matter where, and it only actually matters if you're a swing voter in those dozen ridings in Calgary, right? You know, like, you saw that and you see this tension, right? Okay, I want to win a leadership race, go to my base, find the people. That's, no matter what, right? And then it's like, then you pivot to the general, right? And I think that's one of the things that you see, different paths, right? You saw Aaron O'Toole take a very particular path to win, a very clear pivot to try to go to the center.
And same with Pierre.
Pierre didn't nearly to the same degree, right? I didn't see that.
You didn't think that he was pretty far right in how he won his?
I didn't see the pivot, not to the same degree.
Actually, it's totally different timing.
And so,
but they will come to the center to try and win.
You watch Danielle Smith come through. You know what she's doing. She's got to get. I think her first ballot was like 24,000, right? The number of people that knocked off Kenny was like 20,000. We're talking about like a fraction of the electorate. You know what she's doing. She's appealing to them. You got to say what you got to say to win a leadership. And then you look for the pivot, right? And the pivot, and they walk back. They'll already act a little bit. But, I remember she comes on to Real Talk like 3 days later, and she's like, you know what? It's time to get rural Alberta back and represented here. And Calgary has run this party for too long. And I'm going, there's a dozen seats in Calgary that are going to decide this election. Like, are we pivoting to the center? What are we even doing here? But it's hard, and it is hard. And it's everywhere in politics because, if you look at, for example, the NDP, the NDP base lives in Edmonton. You're going to win all of Edmonton. Doesn't matter, right? You've got these dozen seats in Calgary, but you've also got a lot of staffers who believe, they're true believers. That's why you work in politics. The swing voter doesn't care. The swing voter barely pays attention. The swing voter is just like sitting there, like they're not tuned into this podcast. They're not following that closely. But you got to win their vote. It's an interesting problem that everybody struggles with.
Okay. Let's put it this way, and I can't, for whatever reason, I can't use my Google machine to like get a real answer, but 85,000 ballots cast in the UCP leadership, and Danielle Smith winds up with, like over 50% of them. So 53,
really
54%.
Close, yeah.
So, take from that what you will. So yeah, let's call it 50,000 to get to the point. So I want to put some polling in front of the three of you. I don't know how much polling matters 6 months out, but it's always interesting. We're hearing from Harman Kandola, Jenny Adams, Jarrett Jarrett Campbell on this group chat roundtable here on the Real Talk Roundtable presented by our friends at Urban Timber. Wanted to give a big shout out to our friends at Grand Dog Essentials Quality Raw Food. When it comes to me giving you my word on something, like what we feed our family, including our four-legged family members, that goes a long way, right? I mean, we care about our family more than anything else, even more than our friends in our group chat. Sorry, guys, it's true. Moses and Monroe eat quality raw food from Grand Dog Essentials. Why? Because we've seen what it does for their health. For Monroe, it's her coat. She's a 3-year-old lab. She looks unbelievable with her raw food. And Moses, he's older. He's a boxer. His joints are starting to give him some issues. We've been checking out a couple of the new product blends, including the Doggy Moggy Beef Chicken. Why do you want to combine these two proteins? Well, variety is really important when you're feeding your pets, especially on a raw diet, and this is an easy way to achieve it. You can check out the product page at granddog.ca to find the full ingredient list. And this is a family-owned business that loves to answer any questions you might have. They'll design a custom program. They've got supplements. Whatever your dog's health issue is, they want to get your dog as healthy as possible. They're delivered to your door in Calgary, Edmonton, and Central Alberta. The promo code REALTALK knocks 10% off your first order from granddog.ca. Apex Automation is putting out the call to professional engineers across the country. Shout out to Alyssa, who was tweeting about this just the other day. She's got a friend who's a PN. She was looking for a new opportunity. She said, I heard on Real Talk that Apex is hiring. They are. And they're attracting the most talented engineers from coast to coast to coast. Why? Because they put people first. They put people ahead of profits, if you can believe it. It still exists, this type of corporate mindset. I've seen the way that they roll. I've seen the foundation they built this company on. It's an incredible story, tripling their size over the past 3 years while a lot of other businesses were scaling down. How are they doing it? Check out at apexautomation.ca their projects, what they're doing in automation, and of course, the careers link. This could be the first step you take toward a brand new you. The most professional engineer in the country has to acknowledge that a lot of times it's about more than just the job, right? Apex gets that at Apex Automation. At Friesen Brothers, 65 plus years. Alberta grown, Alberta owned. They understand that the best times are the times shared around the family dinner table, and they've got orders open now for their Ukrainian-inspired Christmas dinner box. $60 feeds a family of 4. What? $15 a person for the full turkey experience with pierogies and those, oh my gosh, the creamy carrots with dill I was telling you all about, the dinner buns, the stuffing, the lazy cabbage rolls, you name it all. Hey, you have 40 people showing up? Order 10 of them. They're ready to heat up while you're setting your table and enjoying your family's company instead of sitting over the stove mashing those potatoes for 20 minutes. Friesen.com is where you can place your order today. If you're sick of slipping and sliding all over the highway, you want to understand the importance, of course, of feeling safe and secure. Four-wheel drive by Jeep is the brand that's been most trusted since the 1940s in that Grand Cherokee, North America's best-selling SUV in history. No shops have a better selection than Sherwood and St. Albert Dodge, in part because they can share their inventory. You can shop them online today or go see them in person. Let them know that Real Talk sent you. And of course, you can get pre-qualified, understand the finances you're dealing with ahead of time so you can walk into that dealership with the knowledge that you're prepared to make a decision at Sherwood and St. Albert Dodge. Interesting polling from the Angus Reid Institute. We're hanging out with Jenny Adams, Jarrett Campbell, Harman Kandola, professionals by day, politicos 24 hours a day. And of course, everything that happens in our group chat, we keep it off the record. That's kind of the whole point of the group chat, but I really respect the three of yours perspective and expertise. I wanted to follow up on something, by the way. Do you feel like, quote, you are always the one in the group chat defending the Conservatives?
Yes, I am.
Yeah,
and I'm really
I thought
just...
that was an interesting statement.
I'm not, well, anyway, let's not get into all of that, but
is it a hard left group chat? I don't think so.
No, but
I don't think lefties would want anything to do with our group chat.
I don't think so either, but it's a very echo chamber Twitter. I live in a city downtown group chat.
I don't live in downtown.
No, you don't. You won't cross the river. I'm surprised you're here right now, actually.
I barely made it here this morning.
We need more people downtown.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do feel like I'm always defending, but my job is actually to always give people perspective on the opposite side of an argument or a conversation. That's literally what we get hired to do, is figure that out. So I do feel like a couple times I've quit the group chat because you guys are such jerks and giving me such a hard time.
That is
True. There was a few months there you weren't in it.
But it was my diplomacy that brought you back, wasn't it?
Yes, you said I'm leaving because you're the only interesting one if you don't come back.
That's how
It was a side text. It was a side text.
Yeah, I don't remember saying that specifically. This from the Angus Reid Institute, and I'm reading a tweet from Philippe Fournier from 338 Canada. He always reminds us when he comes on the show. He says, "I'm not a pollster. I'm a poll analyst." So these are Angus Reid's numbers. It shows in Alberta poll. This was out just a couple of days ago. It was actually, a matter of fact, yesterday. It shows the UCP polling at 48%. The NDP 4 points behind them at 44, and then Alberta Party at 5, the Western Independence Party at 1, and the Alberta Liberals at 1%. Who's the 1% supporting the Alberta Liberals? Anyway, I digress. Some gender splits in that poll as well, but why don't we talk high-level numbers first? Jenny, are you surprised to see United Conservatives polling at 48%, the NDs at 44? What do you make of those two numbers? This is a two-horse race.
It's a two-horse race. I'm not surprised at all.
No.
Like, the Conservatives are not impressive. I think the NDP's rebrand is great. I think, one thing that Rachel Notley's always been good at is getting swarms of people to buy into, like, they care, the NDP care about people. They're trying to make a better place. I'm not saying that Conservatives don't, but they're doing a really good job of getting people who want to buy into that brand and be a part of something. I don't ever get that feeling from any Conservative party where I feel like I'm joining a team and I'm like, this is going to be awesome. I mean, the amount of times that we've gone to political conventions that I've had to give, it's just, it's just a different vibe, Conservative versus NDP. So I'm not surprised, and this is the opportune for the NDPs to kind of show what they have. And
okay, but the way you're interpreting it, I'm a little surprised because you seem to be the thing that's making an impression on you is that the NDP are polling so closely to the United Conservatives.
I mean, I'm not surprised that the Conservatives aren't doing anything great.
But I think another storyline might be that the Conservatives are polling better than the NDP despite
all
a
that.
bit of
Absolutely.
a bumpy road for
Yep.
Danielle Smith out of the gates too, right? Because everybody says it's easier to oppose than govern. It's easy to look good in official opposition, right?
Easy.
Harder to get attention, harder to get the media on you. When I look at that poll, I mean, a high-level poll in Alberta only tells you so much, right? Like, what are the splits, right? The NDP increasing their lead in Edmonton does nothing. The UCP increasing their lead in rural Alberta does nothing, right? And so it's the Calgary numbers. Again, I keep going back to this. I'm kind of a broken record on this. It's like the dozen seats in Calgary, Spruce Grove, Fort Saskatchewan to decide the election. It is close despite everything, but there is such a structural advantage. I mean, a plurality of Calgarians have voted for a Conservative Party for 100 years. In 2015, a plurality still voted for a Conservative Party. They just split it between two, and the NDP were able to win a bunch of seats. There is such a structural advantage for a single Conservative Party in Alberta, on top of massive surplus, big giveaway, everyone's getting checks. Like, I look at that and I go, you have got every advantage, and it's still close, right? And we're going to have a real election here, and it's going to be fascinating to watch how this is going to come together in the next 6 months. It's going to be, I would, if I had to put money on it, I would still think that the UCP will win. The structural advantage is so strong, but my certainty around that is far less than it would have been 6 months ago, right? 6 months ago, I'm sitting there, you got a $13 billion surplus and you're a Conservative Party in Alberta. We're talking about a 3-foot putt, right? Like, this is not that hard.
I miss a lot of 3-foot putts.
Harman,
what do you read into this, if anything? This again, Angus Reid polling analyzed by Philippe Fournier, who says stark gender splits in this Alberta poll. Out of male voters, the United Conservatives have 55% support. The NDP 1 in 3, 33%. Meantime, when you talk to female voters, it's virtually flipped. The NDP sees 53% support, and the UCP about 11 points back at 42.
Well, I think one of the interesting trends we saw at a federal level with some of the polling is that young males are starting to really embrace conservative politics, and seeing a flip. When you kind of break down that demographic by age, you see that at federal, and I wouldn't be surprised that we start seeing that provincially as well. And that is a generational shift. It's something that we haven't seen in Canadian politics before, at least on a federal level. And if that is starting to trickle down into the provincial level, it's not surprising that you would see, the gender divide like that. But I think that, there's been an opportunity missed by a lot of, leftist progressive politicians in being able to connect with young male voters. And at a federal level, we talk about this, that Jagmeet Singh should have been the guy talking about affordability. Like that should have been his issue. They should have dominated on this. And yet they let, Pierre really fill that gap and that void and really be able to connect with people. And I think if you're Danielle Smith and you're the UCP, you look at, the path that Pierre is treading, and being able to connect on things like affordability, that is more broad-based, but also something that really is impacting young people, because those votes are now in play in a lot of this country. And that's something that just historically has not been the case. So there are more pathways for them to actually connect with voters that historically don't support, right-wing and conservative politicians.
You can check out Rick Bell's column. Rick was on the show a few days ago. Every time I talk to that guy, I become a bigger fan of his. I don't know if you guys saw or heard that interview. We were talking about like personal health and wellness and having chats like leading in before Rick joined us. And we're talking about like losing weight or getting healthy or swearing off drinking for a while or whatever. And I remembered that Rick, back in the day, he was a heavy-set fella. That's just a fact. And then he lost like 100 pounds. And I brought him on. I said, I don't think Rick will mind talking about this, right? And so I said, hey, Rick, can we talk about your dramatic turnaround? He goes, we can talk about whatever. And I said, well, what was it for you? And I didn't know this about him. He goes, well, there was the one thing of like getting fit. He goes, there was the bigger thing of quitting drinking. And I was like, oh, wow, okay. And then he just opened it up, and he was just like, yeah, it was like after my second DUI, blah, blah, blah. And he just started like, I just gained so much respect for his honesty there, and we just had a wonderful conversation. I know not everybody's like the hugest fan of Rick's writing. He's a columnist. If you're a columnist that everybody loves, you're a shitty columnist, quite frankly, and you're a better one if you have people that hate read your stuff. Just ask Rex Murphy, right? Rex Murphy trends on Twitter every time he pushes something out. He's not even on Twitter. Like, that's my ultimate life goal. The point is, Rick just yesterday pushes out a piece, Danielle Smith and polls, more bad news in an NDP win. So we've been talking Angus Reid numbers. There's Leger numbers as well. This is before the Sovereignty Act debacle. So you can read into that what you will with regards to how it might change, but that shows a bit of a different story, right? That Leger poll last weekend, so that was like 5-6 days ago, shows the NDP at a 47% of decided voters and the UCP at 44%. The biggest difference is that it shows, and again, 6 months out, take it for what it's worth, it shows the NDP taking 21 out of 26 seats in Calgary. I mean, that would be a national news story for like a year if that were to happen. So we can only talk as much as we can looking into the crystal ball, and there's a lot of stuff that has to happen here. But I think, again, it's safe to say Calgary's the battleground. Edmonton, I'm going to go ahead and call a sweep for the NDP. I think that Deputy Premier Casey Madu is going to lose his seat. I do, and I would actually probably bet money on that. But we'll see. I don't know if anybody else sees anything differently happening in the capital city.
No, I think that's a fair comment. You talk to people, when I'm talking to people out there who are voters, even if they are federal conservatives, they don't see a path to them voting anything other than the NDP in Edmonton. And you talk to them about how they reconcile that. There's definitely been a separation in terms of kind of the direction of conservatism and how it's perceived, at least in Edmonton, by voters. And there are so many people that I meet who are voting provincially, they're voting for the NDP and Rachel Notley, but federally they'll still continue to maintain their identities as conservative voters. Yeah.
So are we really getting kicked off the show without talking about the city budget?
No. I don't want to talk about the city budget. Do you seriously? What about all our audience members outside the city? No, we can touch on it. No, or you're saying because for those that are streaming live, it's now 9:30 Mountain Time, and I asked you guys to stay for an hour. I'm hoping to squeeze a few more minutes, unless you guys have meetings coming up, because we haven't even talked to C21 yet. Can you say no to your next commitment? I know you have one looming. Can you say no to it?
Just a massive renovation happening at my house. Just need to supervise, but that's fine.
I'll give you 5 more minutes.
Yes, no, of course.
Here's an interesting point from Dean in our live chat. Love the Real Talkers that join us live every morning on YouTube. Shout out to those of you on the Mixlr live streaming audio app, presented, by the way, by California Closets. That's the first time that I'm mentioning that. Welcome to the team, California Closets. Dean says, I live in Calgary and I have not encountered hardcore right-wingers. He says, I also interact and have friends in rural areas, and I don't necessarily believe somebody that hunts or supports energy development is a right winger. Dean, I agree with you there. Can we talk? We're talking hunting. That's a nice way to roll. I'm just curious to know where the three of you stand on C-21, the gun control bill. I'm really excited to let our audience know we have an interview coming up on Monday with the most legendary trap shooter in Canadian history. And this is going to be super cool. And I'm going to tell you more about her in just a little bit. But Dr. Susan Nattrass, a 6-time Olympian. She was the first female shooter in Canadian Olympic history. She's a world record holder. She's an absolute legend. And we want to take different angles on this, because this is just turning into like the federal government and the urban folks against the hunters. And like, that's not what C-20, the conversation has to be bigger than that. The question is it called for? Is it the type of legislation that Canada needs? And how damaging or beneficial could this be for the Trudeau Liberals? Harman, I've got your eye here. What do you think?
Well, I don't think it makes any difference to the voters who supported Justin Trudeau. All this does is rile up the conservative base and people who are pro gun. I remember my interactions with guns. Thanks to my good friend, member of the group chat, Jarrett Campbell, introducing me to the Alberta way of life of going out and what we thought was Crown property. JC, and he assured me that he knew the laws and he understood where we could shoot and where we could not shoot, but turns out he was wrong.
Well, like, I grew up in small town Alberta, like 6 hours north of here, right? And so, like, for me, Crown land, you could do whatever you want on Crown land. Shoot some guns, like, kind of thing. So there was some Crown land up by Fort Saskatchewan. I guess, like, looking back, you're like, yeah, well, like, Crown land just outside of Fort Saskatchewan doesn't operate the same as Crown land outside of Manning, Alberta.
Shout out, Manning.
So it's like, yeah, my buddy Harman doesn't know much about guns. I got a bunch of guns. I was like, let's go skeet shooting, like, at this Crown land. Like, you just drive out there and shoot it. And he's like, you're allowed to do that? I'm like, yeah, it's Crown land. Yeah, well, we found out the hard way that, it's different. This is not Crown land like I thought about Crown land.
Okay, so what happened? What happened?
I've got a shotgun in my hand. I'm shooting some of these skeets, and I'm doing phenomenally well because I'm a natural.
That's actually that's a fair statement. He was very good for someone who's
a natural.
I will say that
Guns and I, we get along. And so there I am. I'm shooting these skeets, and we hear the rumble. This rumble starts, and Jarrett's like, stop for a second. We take out our earplugs and we're like, okay, well, what's this rumbling? All of a sudden you see these ATVs roll over the hill.
Okay.
I'm like, well, who are these characters? And they get closer, and as you're getting closer and closer.
Are you wearing a suit and tie at this time too? Because you don't wear jeans, I know.
I actually wearing jeans right now,
okay,
Jenny.
I'm sorry, I take it back. Go, carry on.
And there I am. I'm holding the gun still in my hand, and it's loaded. And as I get closer, it's the police. And they got their police vests on, and they roll up and they walk right up to me, and I'm holding the gun in my hand, and he's like, you can put the gun down now. And I'm like, oh my God. If this was America, I'd be dead. Like,
yeah, you would. Yeah.
They would have just been like, brown guy holding a gun, boom.
Yeah.
Like,
that's terrible.
In America. But
sure enough, they very politely told us that this was not a proper place. It's actually private property that people have been abusing.
No, it was Crown land, but it was whatever. You can't just go shoot guns in Crown land just outside of Fort Saskatchewan.
Okay, fair enough.
And there were shells everywhere there, and so
yeah, we weren't the only ones doing it.
We weren't the only ones, and so we cleaned up our little shells and away we went. But I think coming back to the bill. Here is just more, this is again, Justin Trudeau's, Liberals doing things that they think will appease, some of their base. Again, I don't think it makes any difference. The people who are opposed to this were never going to be their voters. And so here's a way for them to now illustrate the Conservatives as being, pro-gun. And the way that they link that is, here are people who are in favor of lawlessness. And that's the link that the Liberals want to make, which I think is very unfair. I think it's extremely unfair to so many Canadians, who have guns and have guns and use them in a safe way. We don't have the same levels of gun violence as America. And trying to use those tropes and narratives in Canada, I think is dangerous.
Is it so? You're a gun owner currently, like you got a locker full of guns, and like I just want to establish your credibility or your position on this.
Yeah, like with my family all has them.
Okay,
all my brothers.
Okay,
right
so
now.
You're familiar with it. You have your pal. You're blah blah blah. But you're like, no, actually, I just have a bunch under the bed. But so what? As Harman says, the Trudeau Liberals are doing this to appease the voters. I mean, that wouldn't be their message. Their message would be, we're trying to address violent gun crime in Canada. We're doing our best to ensure that these, blah 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 blah. Where do you land on it as a gun owner?
Yeah, as a gun owner, it to me, one, it's poorly designed, right? Like I think that they have identified some guns that are like truly just hunting guns. I don't think it was a well-designed bill, but the whole principle of it was very cynical, right? And you see this with the federal Liberals, right? It's part of the kind of the I'll call it like the, we all live in Canada, but we all watch America, what happens in America, and that really influences a lot of folks. And so you saw this. I remember, was it the Trudeau versus Scheer election, or maybe early O'Toole? They start going down to the polls. They go back to the well, right? Guns, abortion, these kind of things, right? And what they're trying to do is those sort of like GTA 905 swing voters, like the real, the path to victory at the federal level goes through there, and there's some swing seats there. It's just like, what we're trying to do is get the conservatives, get the base to react, make them all mad, and go, look at how crazy these guys are, right? And guns are bad. Look what happens in America. And I'm sitting there like, if you truly felt gun violence in Canada, like the border's the big problem. The guns from America come over, right? Like the hunter in Alberta, his rifle is not the problem. The problem is when we see gun violence in Canada, it's usually guns that got over the border. So like, again, it's just cynical politics. It's just like they got the reaction they wanted. You saw Carey Price up there, and suddenly it's like the story becomes, these guys are crazy. All they love is guns. Guns are bad. Vote for the Liberals.
Oh man, you as a comms advisor must have been like the Carey Price thing. I was like, I said on this show, who the hell was? No one was looking out for Carey Price there. That guy, I'm not like just going to try to defend Carey Price, but I don't know him personally, and I want to be careful how I put it, because if I was just going to cut to the chase, I would say I don't think that Carey Price like has the sort of the necessary base that he needs to wade into a political conversation on gun control in Canada. It clearly was not necessarily. I think he underestimated the impact of posting a photo of him with his hunting rifle, like, right? I mean, like, what you have to. What are the pros and cons of stepping into something like that? And the cons greatly outweighed the pros.
Well, first of all, I'm going to say I haven't been paying attention to this at all. So,
that's also an important point.
But it's an important thing. Like, and again, Rocky Mountain House, Leslieville. Like when I decided I wanted to move in with my dad when I was 18, he was out in Spruce Grove. My mom was very mad, and she said there's going to be all sorts of rules. And I'm like, okay. So I call my dad. I'm like, Dad, what are the rules? And he's like, well, don't touch my guns. I'm like, okay. And then the next day, a big safe came and all his guns went in there. And like,
where were they before?
They were, I don't know, just probably around the house. This is a long time ago.
In a Rubbermaid bin?
Exactly.
By the back door?
But huge hunters. He has a 1,200 square foot smoke shop for all of his hunting and what they do with the meat after. So I can only imagine the rage of sitting around, drinking beer and Trudeau hating with this news. But it's something I just don't pay attention to. I haven't paid attention to it whatsoever.
Well, you look at this story.
The gun violence thing, I completely agree with. And the hunting thing, and it just seems like, again, politics,
but,
right?
Like me as a good, proud suburbanite who lives in, South Edmonton.
But you're a man. You like guns.
But I wouldn't. What would I know about guns until, my good friend Jarrett Campbell from Manning, Alberta decided to, show me
it's a melting pot. It's a melting pot.
But before that opportunity, like when would I ever go use a gun other than at a gun range or, in a shooting range? So for someone like me, you look at any guns and it's easy to villainize gun owners, right? It's easy to, kind of tell us that, this is what's going to keep us safe and keep my family safe. So again, it appeals to me in that basic level. If I'm someone who's in the GTA where there is, a rise of gun violence that's happening right now, where, there's a rise in a lot of criminality and a lot of, issues. And you look at the GTA, one of the biggest stories when I was there for the municipal election was around safety and security, right?
So is it in downtown Edmonton, I just want to say, because we're not talking about the city budget.
But we can talk about city budget.
But here's where, this is all cynical politics, right? At a municipal level, safety, security wins elections, right? It's the same thing at the federal level. And that's all that the Liberals are looking for, is they're going back, like JC said, back to the well to bring back the same issues, because that's what wins elections. Yeah. And we see it at municipal level all the time. Safety and security are the things that people want to talk about, and that's the things that resonate.
Yeah, fair.
Yeah, this is not their first time that they have. They banned guns about a year and a half ago too. They picked a bunch of guns and it was a whole big thing, and it's just like you go back to the well, right? Like, if they're in the lead up to the next federal election, you start losing, they're going to start, bringing abortion politics back up, right? It's like, get the conservatives to do something crazy so you scare the swing voters in the GTA.
Okay.
It's the oldest playbook it's just old.
If we're going to acknowledge things that we've not been paying any attention to, and this is going to make me look just the tiniest little bit bad, I've not been paying any attention to Edmonton's municipal budget. It's not typically the show doesn't like really sort of zero in on Edmonton specifically too often. We look at it more as a prairie podcast, so to speak. But what are some of the things that you? I mean, this is a great opportunity. Part of the reason people tune into Real Talk, and in particular the roundtables, is to get a few important talking points, a couple important takeaways. What are a couple key storylines that you're keeping an eye on? I mean, there's budgets happening across the province right now, but
absolutely. I mean, obviously we don't have any money to do anything, but the $100 million investment into bike lanes, to we don't know where.
Harman's a big bike lane supporter. That was a critical part of his last municipal campaign.
I had to, JC forced me into an exchange where I would support bike lanes, even though, suburban bike lanes, the way that they had them before, down some industrial road, industrial street, with some paint on the lines and saying, yeah, this is a bike lane. I understand the need for having separated, safe spaces for people to ride their bikes. You go anywhere in the world, you have bike lanes. Like, get over it. We need some bike lanes. The $100 million tag,
well, that's the point,
is terrifying.
Yeah.
When you hear that, we're facing these huge budget increases, we don't have money for homelessness, we don't have money for affordable housing, but we're going to spend $100 million on bike lanes. Like, the optics on that is shocking. That's a number that scares people. It could have been 90 million, 88 million, and I think it would have sounded better. 100 million for bike lanes is going to piss people off.
I think the fact that they're talking about defunding, if that's not a strong of the zoo, is a big deal. Like, we've made commitments to past. Yes, that's a huge thing. I mean, I live in the West End, so the zoo is a big topic of conversation, and if we should still be investing in the zoo, taking money out of the high level bridge, and maintaining that. We have all sorts of infrastructure.
What?
That
What do
we
you
don't.
mean? They're going to stop maintaining the bridge?
They're-
That sounds like a bad idea.
They're not going to do it to the level.
You're going to be safe on your bikes, but you're fucked on the bridge.
They're not going to do it to the level in which was first. I mean, this was one of the things I read in Amarjeet's blog today.
Okay.
So I think we don't invest in the infrastructure that we have created or the commitments that we have. But the big one that I want to mention is obviously the overlooking of downtown. And it's not going to surprise you that I'm going to say this, but downtown Edmonton is 17% of our tax base, and there is little to no investment in trying to make downtown investment ready. The more businesses we have, the more residents we have that live downtown, the more people that we have, that helps the entire city. Without that tax dollars, we don't have money to do the bike lanes or the bridge or the zoo or the Lewis Farms Rec Center, all of the things that we need. So it's a big problem. And I think forward thinking, if our downtown, if those towers empty out, if everything empty out more and the values of them go down, everyone's going to be paying more out of their pocket for all of the things, the nice to haves that we'd like to have. And we need a bigger focus on downtown.
Well, I think this is a North American problem. The problem
Not
is
in Calgary, they put Edmonton or the downtown first.
No, and I'm actually agreeing with you, Jenny, in this situation, which is we don't care enough about maintenance and in investing in maintaining what we have. North Americans want new things. They want the next new shiny thing. And so when Amarjeet talks about, kind of pulling back on dealing with the high level bridge or these other things, this is because we've got this fundamental problem that we as a society don't care about investing and maintaining what we have. Rather, we want the newer, shinier thing. We want the new rec center. We want that, new bike lane. I don't know, I guess JC and his friends get excited when they see new bike lanes and they all go on rides together. But I think, that's a fundamental stress and tension that politicians have, right? Is how do you kind of appease people by giving them new things that shows that you're doing something? Because if you're just working on maintenance, well, then the criticism is you're not actually doing anything.
But as a municipal councillor, I don't know, JC, this is really your world. Like, what is your basic job? Like, is it taxes and grass and mosquitoes and potholes? Like, is there not some basic job with the basic amount of money we have? And then there's all the nice to haves where we're kind of stepping out of our lane as city councillors, and we're working on projects and things. Maybe it's innovation, or maybe it's this that isn't really, the basic level of what we need to do with the money we have before we get, 7-10% tax increases.
Yeah, I mean, it's central tension. I mean, you guys make some really good points, right? It's always this tension between, you got to win votes, and so new shiny things win votes, and you're also trying to fix all of the problems in the world. One of the with the municipal government, especially how we've got our constitution. It's not a constitutional level of government. There is not that clear delineation, and so and this central tension comes back to a lot of the conversations that are happening about downtown. Housing and safety and security. Well, whose job is that, right? So you as the DRC are mostly advocating to councillors and saying make our downtown safe. Council's going, well, like when you really think about it, many of these issues are provincial issues, right? And that's been, a lot of
You're
the
talking
conversation.
mental health, healthcare, homelessness.
Yeah, exactly. Like, somebody doesn't have proper health care and they're living on the street making people feel unsafe. And it's like, the folks like the DRC and a lot of the voters are saying, like, city council, go do something about that, right? We want you to fix this problem. And council's going like kinda, and council's going like, we want to, but we've got limited resources. We love the province. The province has stepped up, but it's like
at least
it's not
elevated
clear
that it's a problem. And what can you do? You can bring businesses and people downtown, and that's what city council can help with. They can make us investment ready. They can provide a per door incentive so developers, let's say, start building more residential towers downtown. The more we get people downtown, the more safer it's proven that the downtown will. Like, we're not asking for rocket science, but yeah, we are elevating these issues, just like folks who are pro bike lane or people who have their own issues that they're always bringing them to be top of mind.
Well, we invested in building the studio downtown, and I'm still waiting for the key to the city. So where the hell is that? Plain Power on our live chat says, why are you guys picking on bike lanes? The best.
It's $100 million. It's not bike lanes.
You know what the worst part about this? We haven't even revealed this until now. Is that in our move, we can't find our 5th microphone, which meant to have 4 around the table. We had to steal Johnny's microphone from his producer station. You want to yell and the mics will pick it up? What's your thought on the bike lanes?
I'll weigh in tomorrow, but bike lanes bring people down.
Bike lanes bring people downtown. Okay, you and I, let's talk bike lanes on Monday.
Okay, but the
deal. But let me just make the quick point, and then I'll hand the mic over to you, Jenny. Huh? It's what?
And fuck the zoo.
Fuck the zoo.
Well, he wants to free Lucy, right? Is Lucy still?
Well, Lucy the elephant. There's another.
Let's not bring up the elephant.
Well, we should bring up the elephant, but there's people. There's a new billboard up on the QE2 that want to save Lucy and send her to a sanctuary, and it's a big long story. Plain Power says, listen, the best way to deal with traffic congestion is to offer alternatives, and cycling is an alternative. If you compare the amount that they're investing in bike lanes against the amount set aside for other roads, let's talk like Yellowhead expansion or what have you, the comparison is staggering. We should cut road spending the same amount as for bike lane spending. Meantime, Charlotte says Jenny's correct. Most exciting cities, or the best most exciting cities, have an exciting downtown core with entertainment areas, with well-maintained historic buildings like Mercer Warehouse, and restaurants, etc. And so there's some interesting points there. Someone else I saw said, if you want to see where commerce goes to die, check out the Edmonton City Center. That from Shirley. Go see Edmonton City Center on Sunday. That's an absolute, I don't know what they're going to do with that footprint. That's got to be 2 square city blocks, 4 square cities. This massive footprint in downtown Edmonton.
Yeah, and they're doing the best that they can.
Of course they are. I'm not taking swipes at them.
No,
I can't
and
imagine.
Their owners are interested in redeveloping. And again, it's like, hey, we'll show us that this is a smart decision, because without that shopping center, which is a massive footprint, as being vibrant, that's a huge hole in a downtown. So show us that it makes sense to invest hundreds of millions of dollars here.
Yeah, and there's a certain irony too, isn't there? Although maybe I'm misusing the word, but like there's LRT construction happening right outside that mall. Like,
yes, and then city council decides to shut that road down in a pilot project because folks on bikes decide that they want to have that dead. So now we've got a dead road. No, but that's exactly what happened. And I'm not anti-bike, but here Stephen Delansky and Chris Henderson are going back and forth on Twitter, and I want to give some credit. But there was cite
the sources. So Delansky is a former UCP lawyer. He's a well-known lawyer. He was Kenny's lawyer for a while, or one of them. And Chris Henderson is chief strategist at Y Station.
And they don't usually agree on Twitter. Okay, but here that they do.
But I think they like each other.
We all like each other. But they're talking about how if city council pours millions and millions into more bike lanes, we may get a 1.5% increase of commuters using bikes. And there's a poll that kind of went out and some research that was done. And so Chris actually writes back, and I think it's a great idea, that he says, I agree with Stephen. We should be providing more incentives for people to use transit, the transit system we have, and invest it in to justify the expansion of transit. And then I'm going to add bike lanes, right? Like, if that's all the bump is going to do is 1.5%, let's incentivize people, because we haven't even started talking about the LRT that we're spending all of our money on that doesn't work and isn't going to work for a long time. And we don't know where people are going right now, right? So if we start to justify how we're spending money with not just because we need to do it, but because we have ridership, because it's going to pay for itself, and we incentivize people, well, then maybe more of us can get behind it. But $100 million, like Harman said, when we don't have money to do all these other things that we need to, the nice to haves, like the bridge or the Twilliger Drive expansion or Lewis Farms or the zoo, and the things that we've previously committed to, it's really hard to get behind. Yeah. It's not an anti-bike thing. It just seems a little crazy.
Why?
Yeah.
Give me bike lanes in suburbia. Give me the bike lane.
You would have made a great
for
counselor. I
people.
am being serious, Harman. I wish you.
No,
I
but,
wish you.
Like Southeast Edmonton.
You would have been a great counselor,
right?
Harman.
Who are the people who
Shame on the people in your ward that didn't send you to City Hall. Shame on those voters.
Had nothing to do
The
with
voters are
Jarrett
never
being in your
wrong.
campaign.
The voters are never wrong.
Yeah, some interesting comments. Graham says the zoo doesn't help Edmonton with tourism. It's overshadowed by Calgary. I mean, that's been the case for Calgary's got a world-class zoo, and Calgary zoos. And we should do a whole show on how the mandates of zoos are evolving to be more sort of like like a restorative type thing, where like animals that have been like orphaned whatevers can come there and be bred, and we can restore populations and maybe release this sort of education center. I just can't ignore the feeling I get when I'm at a zoo where I just feel bad.
Well, I just think one day it's going to be us in the zoo.
There's a giraffe in this concrete room, and like it just to me, I can't get on board with it. But that's totally fine. Everyone can have their own opinions on that. I like that we had this sort of like 20 minutes of like hyper Edmonton specific content, because I know that the live chat's catching fire right now too. So there you have it.
It's almost like we're
There
popular.
you go. The people want Edmonton municipal budget conversations. That's what the people are asking for.
Well,
So
if somebody
I
wants
just
to-
think we're super
we are
nerds.
ready.
We're absolutely super nerds.
We could do an hour just on the municipal election.
We
Harman,
could.
you look
Election
like a
budgets,
GQ
you know.
model.
I
Go
mean,
back
we
to
really
Harman's
could.
shot for a second.
We really
go back
could.
to Harman.
Can we go
Look
back
at
to the
this guy.
interrogation cam? Look at
Harman,
that.
look in the camera.
Yeah,
Look in the
this
camera.
is this is traumatizing. It's like I'm being interviewed now that you're all looking at me.
We
The
need
bright
to have one
lights
of
in your
those like
face.
the drop down single bulb light bulbs that just hang there right in front of you, just radiate heat. Harman, so grateful that you were able to join us. You're probably still completely jet lagged, and we love that you almost came from the airport straight to here, so it worked out great.
Not in your shorts.
Jenny, thank you for postponing the meeting with your home renovations team and for sticking around.
You may
into
owe me some new
overtime.
cabinets if I get
you
there
some
in the
new
wrong
cabinets?
place.
Well,
Yeah.
hey, I know a team that does amazing
Perfect.
work.
Oh, I'll take the closets, the California
The
closets.
California closets.
Thank
There you go. Yeah, we'll have them all. The whole thing done by Complete Care Restoration. How many sponsors can I fit into this casual mention?
Freezing
I was
Brothers.
gonna say,
I need
my-
some groceries
You need
too.
some freezing.
I do want to give a shout out to Athabasca U. My wife is a very proud graduate.
Is that right?
Yes. Over COVID, over having two children, she had the flexibility through Athabasca U to finish her master's.
amazing.
And she so I want to give it a shout out to Athabasca University for being a phenomenal educational institution.
That's very cool, Harman. I appreciate that.
Would you move to Athabasca if you worked for them?
no.
Yeah, that whole
That's
thing.
boy, is that ever a
is
can of worms?
that
What are
is
you
a
trying to do? You're trying to start a whole other. It's 9:53 now.
I
If it
know,
wasn't
I'm
live,
sorry, and really my house is going down.
Johnny and I can
Yeah.
go forever. We don't care. I mean, I'll go forever on that. That's an interesting story, isn't it? As well, but the provincial government, to do it in one sentence, and then maybe a quick comment from you. Here was the idea under the Kenny Conservatives, and I don't know if there was. Malice is a heavy word to use, but I don't know if they were trying to flex their muscles a bit, the provincial government, when it came to funding. But they were talking about how a lot of the funding for Athabasca University would rely on the fact that they wanted, what was it, at least a quarter or half of its faculty to be living in Athabasca, Alberta.
It was an influx of 500 people,
Yeah.
500 individuals.
So we're talking though, like the town of Athabasca is a wonderful place, but you're talking about like it would overwhelm the housing market. It would do, and also that's kind of not the point. It's a remote learning institution. It's an online post-secondary institution.
Yeah, and I think if you go back in time, the whole reason for having Athabasca University was to help Athabasca's economy at the time, right? Which is why the Conservatives were circling back to it and saying, no one lives here. This isn't helping the economy whatsoever. Now everyone has online programming. You need some of your executive, but they backed right off of it.
Yeah, they did. Was that Lougheed that established? I was trying to Lougheed or Getty. It was right around that time. I should know better. And JC, thanks for hanging out with us as well. I hope we didn't make you late for any of your white collar board meetings. Your very important decisions.
Very
to be
political
made.
elite.
Your political
The
elite.
political elite.
The 1%.
The elite volunteers.
See, I was going to give my shout out to Friesen Brothers, because
Big
I'm
great
not part of the
cookies.
political elite. I grew up in Manning, Alberta, peace country,
Yeah.
the home, the founding of Friesen Brothers.
You know
Frank
it.
Lovson was in Peace River. I mean, the Friesen Brothers IGA Supercenter in Peace River, when it opened in the 90s, like you would go down there as a kid and there's like unlike anything you've ever seen in your life. And it's like amazing to come and that, how the company's evolved. And now there's this amazing grocery store in Edmonton. And I'm like, my friends worked at the Friesen Brothers IGA in Manning, and
They are
sold us cigarettes when we were 16, stuff like that. Like, it's like,
Don't tell the Friesen family that.
Small
It
town.
was
It
going
was a
so well.
small
It was going
town
so
grocery
well.
store.
I will say my little guy Sasha makes me drive across the city to the south side.
He's a smart kid.
Because they've got great burgers apparently, like
They
the
have
food.
smash burgers.
Yeah, and then for the cookies.
Yes.
So we drive across the city. So I'm hoping to get one in West Edmonton if anyone
And they
is
got
listening.
Granny Loveson's Christmas cake as well, which is pretty special. Yeah, Frank Loveson, may he rest in peace, passed away just on November 20th. An absolute legend. If you're watching us on YouTube, there he is. I love that he was still with us to see his team at the Rabbit Hill location, the South Edmonton location, take the gold medal from the Canadian Independent Grocers Association. This is the Canadian Independent Grocer of the Year. This is the best grocery store in Canada. And of course, a legacy that it really is remarkable. Still family owned, man. 65 years, 16 grocery stores. And I wish I could tell you about other exciting news that they'll have to announce, but I can't.
The West End location.
107th Ave traffic circle?
I can't say anything. But what I will say is that we're really proud to partner with them, and I love the three of you, and I appreciate you making time for us into overtime. Since we did keep you so long, we're going to let you walk out with the Real Talk Studio coffee mug.
Can I just say that I cleaned up my kitchen
Yeah.
this week and I had a breakfast television mug,
Yeah.
a Help TV mug, my
Yeah,
show,
yeah.
Ryan Jesperson 630 Ched mug,
Yeah.
and now I've got the Real Talk.
There you go.
And I didn't throw out any of them.
Thank you.
They made the cut.
Yeah, even times you've been pissed off at me, you still haven't smashed my mugs.
Them. I haven't been that mad at you yet.
Oh, yet. Well, there's still time. That's Harman Kandola, Jenny Adams, and Jarrett Campbell, three dear friends of mine, members of our off-the-record group chat and the on-the-record group chat Real Talk Roundtable. Get you in here maybe a few times a year, and today's been a really memorable one. Thanks for all your time. Good to get a gun owner on the reel. We had to make sure we had that. So
A gun owner who introduces guns to people like Harman, who would have...
that should be your Twitter
I believe he
bio.
almost got arrested.
A gun owner who introduces guns to others. That's Jarrett Campbell, Jenny Adams, and Harman Kandola. All right, these conversations happen because of our amazing sponsors, like the team at the Dairy Queens of Northwest Edmonton and Sherwood Park. I want you to check out dqcakes.com right now. It doesn't matter what you're celebrating this month. It could be an anniversary, a birthday. It might be Christmas, Hanukkah. Happy Hanukkah to our Jewish friends. And, of course, Kwanzaa as well. Maybe even a Festivus custom DQ cake. You can find them all online at dairyqueen.com or dqcakes.com. And, of course, don't forget to support the Dairy Queens in Palisades, Nemeo, Newcastle, Westmount, and in Sherwood Park on Baseline Road whenever you can. That's the Cardinal and Lieber families that own and operate those 5 locations. We love family-owned business here on Real Talk. We are one, and so is the team at Eden Landscaping, bringing outdoor spaces to life. This week, we've kind of been touring through their website to show off their portfolio and give you different examples of what their team can accomplish. They've got a lot of talent and a great history when it comes to stonework, right? So whether it's a patio, maybe you want to integrate some sort of a creative retaining wall type scenario, or what about one of those breathtaking water features? Mike and his team have 20 plus years experience earning the return business and referrals of their clients in the greater Edmonton area. It's a great time of year to get the ball rolling on the design so they can break ground as soon as the ground thaws. LandscapeEdmonton.ca is where you will find Eden Landscaping. And we're talking about electricity costs. We're talking about natural gas and other utilities costs higher than most people have seen in the last 20 years, quite frankly. Park Power understands what it's like for families that are on a budget. It's why they really knock down their administrative costs when you bundle their services, electricity, natural gas, and internet. It takes 2 seconds to compare rates at parkpower.ca. It takes less than 5 minutes to bring your business over to them. Make sure when prompted online, you use the promo code 2022-Real Talk to knock $70 off your first bill. And there's another really cool part about signing up with Park Power. There's a drop-down menu with about a dozen nonprofits, about a dozen charities that they support. You get to choose which one a percentage of your contribution will go to. Doesn't cost you any more. Park Power takes about 10% of their profits, their proceeds, and makes sure that nonprofits are supported. We love doing business with Park Power. Now, every Friday, we go into our email inbox, talk@ryanjesperson.com. And courtesy of our great friends at Local Environmental Services, you can check them out online today, localenvironmental.ca. We dip our toes in the pool of tradition. We call it Trash Talk! All right, this one from Erin, and this is quick and dirty. She says, Dear Metallica, Aaron was shopping for tickets. I love you. I would love to see you, but I cannot afford you. WTF were you thinking? What is this, the retirement fund tour? It is clearly not a fan tour. That from Aaron, who's not going to see James Hetfield in the band because it costs too much. What about this one from Kimberly? Kimberly says, hey, can we talk about how frustrating it is to witness the downfall of respect and decorum in Canada? I catch question period in Parliament at least a couple of days a week, and the lack of respect that I see from the Conservatives every time a Liberal speaks is disgraceful. She says, thinking back to earlier in the week on your show, Ryan, she says, I heard, like Supriya basically said, we had to send props to Danielle Smith. This was on Seriously podcast, to walk back legislation to listen to the plebs, which, by the way, says Kimberly, didn't happen. Liberals are consulting, putting the brakes on to make sure they get it right, and they're getting cock-blocked by Conservatives. Conservatives continue to push decorum so that we cannot have discussion and then blame the Liberals. That's gaslighting. I don't want American-style politics here, but I feel like a minority. That from Kimberly. She says, excuse my rant. Much love. Kimberly, no excuses necessary. And this one from Janine, who says, my stomach is in knots. She says, the Premier, the United Conservative Government, is shooting Alberta in the face. When will the Alberta First convoy supporting Trudeau haters take that giant splinter of blind rage out of their eyes and see how this Premier's destroying Alberta? What are they expecting? Are we really the province who gets its way with threats? Come on, Premier, get to work. Real work. This comes across like a hissy fit. Who's going to want to work with a province that threatens its neighbors? Like, if you don't give me what I want, then I'm going to take this away from you. Shame on the MLAs who voted this in. She's talking about Bill 1. Bow down, you cowards, to a Premier who stands for nothing, who works with no one. All she wants is a fight, and we Albertans are going to suffer. So how do I wake up my right-wing family and friends? Do I challenge them to listen to Real Talk for 2 weeks or a month? Well, yeah, that's exactly what you do, Janine. She says, or am I the blind one? Is my hatred for the UCP keeping me from seeing the benefits of this Premier and her party? Because I'm tired of the rage, I'm tired of the fear, and I'm tired of the hate that's brewing in my heart. Hey, Janine, at least you told the truth, and we give you big points for that. You can send your trash talk to us. Get whatever you need off your chest by emailing talk@ryanjesperson.com. Proudly presented by Local Environmental Services. As mentioned Monday, the return of Charles Adler. That's appointment tuning for a lot of you we know. Plus, we're going to talk to a legendary Canadian trap shooter, a 6-time Olympian, a world record holder, Dr. Susan Natras. A different take on C21. Thanks for tuning into this edition of Real Talk. We value you more than you know. Like, subscribe, and tell your friends, and we'll see you Monday.
Real Talk is hosted by Ryan Jesperson. Executive producer Josh Dunford. Technical producer John Hicks. General manager Katie Cook-Chivers. Account coordinator Lawrence Derlego. Human resources Lena Shepard. Website design Mike Johnston. Voiceover by me, Carrie Skelton. Real Talk's editorial board is Supriya Dwivedi, Ahmed Ali, Brandy Morin, Ann Castleman, Corey Hogan, Harman Kandola, Catherine O'Neill, and Chris Henderson. Member Emerita, Julie Rohr. Real Talk is recorded in Edmonton, Alberta on Treaty 6 territory, the traditional and ancestral territory of the Cree, Dene, Blackfoot, Saulteaux, and Nakota Sioux, home to the Métis settlements and the Métis Nation of Alberta. Real Talk is a relay project. For more, check out ryanjesperson.com.